Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie. On this episode today, we are going to be going over some nonfiction releases that are coming out June 2023, and we only have 7 here, so we've got a few. First on the list, let us talk about Diablo, Book of Lorath. This is by Matthew J. Kirby, and this came out the day that Diablo was released, so Diablo 4. If you're not a gamer, maybe this is the game to get you into games because it's dark, it's gritty, it's gruesome. We have demons, angels, everything. It's pretty awesome. It's good. So we've been actually hacking away at the game a little bit this week. So I'm really excited to see this book. So it's a beautifully illustrated, very comprehensive additional book of the Diablo franchise, the lore, but it kind of follows the story. So we talk about the Haradrim, and we have one member kind of left, and we're following Lorath Nahir, and it's going through Sanctuary's most powerful relics with him and the stories that are behind them and all of the evil, the prime evils that you have to fight, the lore behind all the heroes and the beautiful art. So you can probably see here, there's some gorgeous art. I like what they've done with the almost like tea stain. It looks aged paper and the brown inking. It just looks very, very well done. So this is, if you are a Diablo fan, if you've already collected some of Matthew J. Kirby's stuff, you will probably want this one as well. It is Diablo, a Book of Lorath. This is a Diablo character tome, and it is by Matthew J. Kirby. Next on our list today is Letting Magic In, a Memoir of Becoming. This is by the one and only Maia. So she's done a lot of stuff like Night School. That's the most recent of her projects. She's also done Wild Wisdom. And she's contributed to a lot of oracle decks, tarot cards, just astrology, but like almost everything metaphysical that you can think of. And she kind of grew up craving this relationship with nature without any sort of middleman. So when you're doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of people tend to turn towards priests or preachers of the like, and then we turn to science to explain the world around us, and all of that is very understandable, but she kind of wanted to find a way to do it for herself and find a word for what all of these things mean, like finding the spirit that is sparked by all of these relationships. And I think she describes it beautifully, generally just like the feeling you get when you see like little bits of dew on the grass. I don't know. I'm that kind of person where you just like, there's this weird relationship there. So she calls it magic, and I love that. So she goes through her journey on how she discovered what magic is to her, which I think is really admirable. So we see her story kind of transition because she deals with this death of a friend. It moves onward to living in a city like New York City, and then moving into the countryside, and then ultimately kind of apprenticing at a tea shop in Ireland, and then learning more and more about just the communing with nature. So we get to learn more of that. It's her story of letting magic in, observing this beautiful world around us and how extraordinary everything is. And she uncovers the things that change you in unexpected ways and guide you to become the person you never knew you wanted to be, but perhaps that you always were. And she says that all of this, in conclusion, is magic. I like that. So this is Letting Magic In, a Memoir of Becoming by Maia. Next, we have a really fun book for any of you bibliophiles out there. It's called Libronum, Ridiculorum. I'm wearing my Harry Potter shirt for these things, I guess. It's a compendium of bizarre books, and it's a fantastic gift for anybody that just loves weird, wild stuff, especially books that have been published throughout history. So this is kind of a celebration of all kinds of strange books, or the strangest of books that have been published throughout history. So books tend to have the power to enrich our lives. They guide us. We gain knowledge from them, but sometimes they're just weird, and we can appreciate that for sure. So there's a whole list of books that they talk about, and they've fallen out of print, but probably should never be forgotten. That kind of book. So an example of that is Premature Burial and How It May Be Prevented. Oh boy, we have Frog Raising for Pleasure and Profit. Well, that sounds interesting. Scouts and Bandage. We also have Drummer's Discharge. Oh, so those are the books that are listed. They probably go through like what all of that means. They have photos throughout. It's entertaining. So if you like strange, wild, bizarre books, this is definitely for you. It's called Libronum, Ridiculorum. It's a whole compendium of weird, wild books that have been published and are out of print. Next on our list today is Music and Death, Funeral Music, Memory, and Re-Evaluating Life. This is by Wolfgang Marx and Peter Edwards, and it comes out June 13. So this is a very academic book. It is almost $100, so I would say this is definitely, you can find it at the library, or I don't know, maybe you can find it somewhere. It's pretty pricey though. So it talks about the history of music, how music gives meaning to our lives, but also how we experience death. So it does play a very central role in like death rituals. We always play music during funerals, and we have for forever, I think, lots of cultures around the world. This book specifically talks more about Western music over the course of history, including like the Middle Ages to now. So it talks about a whole range of music. Clearly, I mean, we're not all listening to medieval music currently, but it also talks about like the musicians too and how they react to death, because they're the ones creating this music, how they engage with grief, anger, acceptance, all of the stages, and how the public reacts to the death of musicians even, because all of these things seem to be somewhat interwoven together. Some of the music you might see in this book, they talk about like different ballets and operas that definitely revolve around death. We have art songs. They even talk about Leonard Cohen and the B-52s, and we have instrumental music, lots of those things in regards to death. So it's a really fascinating read. I'm a big music person, so this might be something I would love to pick up eventually. This is Music and Death. This is Funeral Music, Memory, and Re-Evaluating Life. This is by Wolfgang Marx and Peter Edwards. Next on our list today, we only have 3 more books. This one's fascinating, and I think I'm going to have to pick it up. It is Prepared, a manual for surviving worst case scenarios. So this is by Mike Glover, and we have Jack Carr who does the foreword. This comes out June 6th. This is really fascinating because a lot of people talk about being prepared for catastrophe, and for them, they think, let's build a bunker in my backyard, or like, let's have all of these MREs stashed away. But they don't think about the things that are more likely to happen. I feel like a lot of people think that we're looking at huge catastrophes, like, zombie apocalypse or nuclear war, that not like those, that versus like car accidents, being stuck in the snow on a mountainside, like those kinds of things that are actually more likely to happen to us, and we don't know what to do about it, and we're never prepared for those things. So Mike Glover has experience in the Army, Special Forces, and was a government contractor for the CIA, so he's trained thousands of people in the science of survival, which is very cool. So some of the things you will actually learn, this is one that I think is really fascinating and honestly really sold me on the book, is how to rewire your brain to get out of that freeze moment. I think that's very, very important. I've also studied some self-defense training myself, and that's the one thing that is the biggest hurdle, is getting people out of that freeze zone when they experience it. And it's hard. Like it's It's a mechanism for a reason. So learning how to increase your stress tolerance during times of crisis. Another one is like fortifying your home by learning how to use and store essential foods. So good. That's really good. I actually need that too, like water and supplies too, first aid and ammunition if you need it. Another one that's really helpful, and I've been trying to do this myself, I usually am good at it, is to actually equip your vehicle with survival stuff, like making sure you do have all the water. So I always try to keep water in my car. Very important, y'all. Having a first aid kit, so if you do get in a car accident, it takes a really long time for the ambulance, for the police, for firefighters, anybody to arrive. So having some of those things in your vehicle will actually increase your odds of survival, and learning how to apply these things as well. So there's a whole slew of really useful information for being prepared for really catastrophic events. And hopefully none of us experience that, but in case we do, we can be prepared. So this book is called Prepared, A Manual for Surviving the Worst Case Scenarios. This is by Mike Glover. So next on our list is the Tarot Almanac, a seasonal guide to divining with your cards. This comes out June 6th, and it's by Bess, Matassa. So we have 78 cards in our tarot, and they hold the keys to understanding the world. This book guides us into understanding the using astrology and the cards simultaneously, plus seasons. So these pages offer a method for reading the tarot in the rhythm of the cosmos, which is very cool. But a lot of tarot card books are very similar to this. I love the book cover. It is so stunning, as you can see over here. It is just beautiful. It teaches you how to meet your deck and strengthen your intuitive bond throughout the year, which is very cool. If this is something that's of interest to you, this is coming out June 6th. This is the Tarot Almanac. This is by Bess, Matassa. Now, our final book is one I'm definitely 100% picking up, because this is definitely up my alley. It is What the Dead Know, learning about life as a New York City death investigator. And yes, this is by Barbara Butcher. So it actually says in the description down below that Butcher, yes, she knows and has heard all of the jokes, and yes, it's probably getting old to her. So this comes out June 20th. This is a really cool personal memoir, again, of more than 20 years of death scene investigations in New York City by the death investigator Barbara Butcher. She was one of the first, so actually the second woman hired to be a death investigator in Manhattan ever. So that's also very cool. She's investigated more than 5,500 death scenes, and 680 of those were actually homicides. So she talks about what it was like in the field. So a lot of people didn't even survive 3 months, especially women. You know, the kind of bravado you needed to work in that period of time in the city of Manhattan and working with death every single day. It's gruesome. It's brutal. You're seeing all of these bodies. I mean, that's a lot. So 5,500 scenes. That's not including like how many people were possibly involved. So she describes just, it was luck. She was an alcoholic and she was recovering, and she somehow got into this field. In fact, she does describe sheer luck of having her arm in a cast. She avoided a booby-trapped suicide. I don't know how, and that's a story that intrigues me. Now I need to know about it. She's also worked on the scene of 9/11, and she and her colleagues relied on family members and how they described, you know, the victims here of 9/11 to distinguish among 21,900 body parts of all the victims, which is heartbreaking. But that was her job. So if you want to learn more, I mean, like, it's a really fascinating, real story of a woman who she dealt with death every single day and learned surprising lessons about life, and like how some of those lessons actually helped her from becoming a statistic herself, which I love. It's very cool, but also this is a very grim book at this, at the same time. So if you are interested in like true crime and you want an actual real life memoir experience of dealing with these kinds of cases, especially from Barbara Butcher's lens, this is What the Dead Know, Learning About Life as a New York City Death Investigator. This comes out June 20th. All right, so I know there wasn't very many books, but that's okay. So we had about 7 novels here. I'm sure there's a ton of other dark nonfiction reads that are coming out in June, but especially as the days approach Halloween, we're going to start getting a lot more. Thank you for listening. Make sure to stay tuned every Wednesday and Friday and maybe a Monday every once in a while for new episodes. And to spread the word about Dark Side of the Library, we'd love to hear from you. Comment. Make sure to give us a follow so you are notified of our videos. And to join us on Amazon.com/live/Dark Side of the Library. We do like to live stream, especially as the spooky season arrives. We're going to be showcasing a lot of cool items over there. Thank you again. Have a creep-tastic rest of your week.